I could see her glinting eyes across the sun-drenched driveway as Karen's finger trembled over her phone screen, ready to dial the lifeline she believed would rescue her from embarrassment and regret. The morning had started with birds chirping and a gentle breeze rustling the hedges that I had spent weeks trimming by hand. She had strutted down the sidewalk like she owned every pebble beneath her designer loafers, flashing that smug half-smile that whispered, "I'm above the rules." When I politely declined her offer an exorbitant HOA easement fee demanding that I pay for a right-of-way I'd never needed, her smile cracked, revealing the fury beneath. She pressed her palm to the horn of her flabby frame of a Volvo SUV and screeched at me, demanding compliance with her petty decree. Calmly, I produced my badge, the polished metal catching the sunrise as I reminded her that I served my community as a marshal and had authority over unlawful extortion. The shock washed over her like ice water. Her manicured nails went pale as she realized that this wasn't a simple homeowner skirmish. She had gone too far, and the wrong person was standing before her. Her eyes darted to her phone, and before I could intercept, she hit call. I watched her shoulders hunch, her breathing hitch like a teenager exposed in a lie. The street became silent as neighbors peeked from windows, the tension crackling in the air. But I knew a secret she didn't. The HOA board's meager profits were funneled into a slush fund hidden under layers of falsified minutisa truth I'd uncovered during my off-duty investigations. While she barked into the phone, I activated the recorder on my belt, capturing every whimper of outrage, every frantic breath. Then I placed a gentle hand on her arm and whispered a simple truth. Public servants answer to more than random phone calls, they answer to justice. A flicker of panic crossed her face as she recognized the metal clip of my badge shimmering next to her ear. She stammered a denial and slammed her phone shut, her face twisting in confusion and rage. But I had fueled the narrative already. With steady calm, I unveiled the evidence. Photographs of bank transfers, shadowed meeting minutes, invoices stamped with forged signatures. Her mouth fell open, her cheeks flush with shame as the neighborhood gathered around, drawn by the sudden hush and charged atmosphere. Midway through her sputtering denials, a stranger stepped forward, Mrs. Liu from 2 houses down, holding a key ring engraved with the HOA president's initials. She declared that she had been coerced into signing documents she didn't understand, revealing a slave labor scheme the board had run to suppress dissent. Karen's eyes bugged out, the weight of collective accusation pressing down on her chest like a stone. She tried to scramble for control, but her voice betrayed her spectacle of power. As the confrontation intensified, I could see her veneer cracking. She lunged for my recorder, knocking the wooden sign at my feet, the plank skittering across the pavement. Its message, "Badge of Truth will unmask you," lay exposed for all to read. In that instant, Karen's bravado collapsed into horror. She froze, limbs locked, expression carved in stone, as though the world had paused to judge her. Neighbors whispered in shock. Cameras flashed from porches. I held my ground as Karen's rigid posture betrayed the storm raging within. She pried her fingers loose from my belt clip and thrust them into the folds of her purse. A futile search for something: authority, leverage, dignity. Instead, she produced only a crumpled HOA bylaw pamphlet, its pages dog-eared and stained from overuse. She waved it like a shield and sputtered accusations that I'd staged the evidence, that I had personal vendettas, that she was merely protecting property values. But the faces around her had turned weary and resolute. Mrs. Patel, standing beside the hedge I had sculpted into an eagle, stepped forward next, her voice calm but unyielding as she recounted how Karen had threatened property liens against her son's wheelchair ramp project. The crowd murmured in collective outrage, each neighbor recalling their own encounter with Karen's petty fines and covert intimidation. Her breath came in ragged gasps now, the veneer of power slipping away. She thrust the pamphlet toward me, demanding I listen to her carefully printed clauses, but I shook my head, the evidence unmistakable. Forged signatures, misappropriated funds, and a trail of intimidation that led straight to her. The wooden plank sign lay on the ground between us, its message seared into the collective consciousness. "Badge of Truth will unmask you." Karen's eyes flicked to it, guilt and fear warring on her flushed face. She seemed to shrink in stature, her threats muted by the weight of community judgment. Then, trembling, she staggered back, tripping over the fallen sign and landing hard on the pavement. The phone slipped from her grasp, shattering on the concrete in a spray of glass. As she lay there, heart hammering, she realized this skirmish was not under her control. Barraged by testimony after testimony, her deflated protests vanished into silence. A hush fell over the street, punctuated only by the distant chirp of a sparrow, a poignant contrast to the ferocity that had ripped through the neighborhood moments ago. In that suspended moment, I offered her my hand. Not to arrest, not to humiliate further, but to lift her up and show her a pathway to redemption. She stared at my extended arm as if seeing it for the first time. Slowly, she reached out, her manicured nails grazing my fingers before I pulled her upright. Her shoulders slumped as she stared at the broken phone and the sign at her feet, her arrogance drained away, replaced by shame. I turned to the neighbors and spoke softly. This community stands for fairness, respect, and truth. We won't let fear or entitlement erode our unity. Heads nodded, tears glistened, relief and vindication mingled in the summer air. Karen's cheeks burned as she realized her sphere of influence had evaporated. Her HOA board had convened under false pretenses. Her power plays had backfired spectacularly. No fines would stand, no liens would proceed, and she would answer for the slush fund and labor scheme in court. As the first chapter of justice closed, I watched Karen's hollow gaze shift to the broken pieces of her phone, her lifeline to control now irrevocably severed. The neighbors gathered around her in a loose circle, not to gloat but to offer accountability, a chance for her to acknowledge wrongs and rebuild trust. She swallowed hard and whispered a stammered apology, eyes cast down, the weight of community expectations urging her toward atonement. Part 5. Aftermath and Inspiration. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood and local press. HOA board members resigned in shame. Pending investigations into mismanagement and fraud were launched, and the slush fund vanished under legal scrutiny. The community rallied to replace the broken sign and repair the hedges, now sculpted as symbols of freedom rather than fear. Children played on freshly paved sidewalks without fear of petty fines, and elders sat on benches chatting openly about neighborhood gardens and block parties. I returned to my trimmed hedges and polished badge, humbled by the unity forged from confrontation. Karen, meanwhile, became a cautionary tally, an arrogant figure frozen in a moment of hubris, immortalized in photographs shared online. But I chose to believe in redemption. Months later, she attended the first community garden dedication ceremony, offering genuine apologies and volunteering to prune unhardened shrubs under supervision. It wasn't a full absolution, but it was a start, proof that even those who wield power unjustly can learn the value of empathy and service. The story concluded not with finality but with an invitation. If you witness similar abuses of power, if you've ever felt entangled by entitlement or silenced by bureaucracy, share your experiences below. Right and wrong blur when we stay silent. Speak up, stand firm, and together we can unmask injustice and cultivate communities rooted in respect and truth. What's your take? Was Karen's transformation genuine, or merely a calculated performance? Share your thoughts, right or wrong. Let the conversation begin.